Okay. Hello everybody, welcome. Exciting day today. Spiritual message from God Shiva. I've watched this spiritual message a few times this week just to prepare for today and take the key points from it. And it's such an incredible spiritual message with such a big picture. The big picture about the earth, where we're at, the understanding of God Shiva. I mean, it's just incredible. But anyway, we'll get into that shortly. But let's start with does everyone have the brown prayer book? Yes? Okay. Let's start with the true words spoken by Buddha. So God Shiva. Spiritual message from God Shiva. So I don't know if anybody here has any experience with a Hindu teaching before. Has anybody had any experience or studied or looked into? Great. So Hinduism is a very rich religion. Talks about so many different gods. There's so many gods and they've got so many characters that they take on to portray the different characters within them. But in the Hindu religion, there are three main gods. And really these main gods, even though they're really one, but they've got different aspects of the god. So Shiva is considered the third god in the Hindu Triumvirate. And it's the Triumvirate consists of three gods who are responsible for the creation, the upkeep, and the destruction of the world. The other two gods are Brahma and Vishnu. So the idea is that one creates, then the other preserves that creation, and eventually another part destroys that creation so that the creation can start again. So it's very interesting, but all these three are depicted separately, and yet really they're really part of the same essence. Now, when I think of in the world today, I think Shiva is very active in the world today, because Shiva is the god of destruction. And we can see in the world today, there's so much destruction happening. But when I was reading this, and I was thinking about the Shiva with the god of destruction, he only destroys so he can create something great. And when, we know the world's in a very destructive state right now. All around the world, so many things are happening. But, when Master said here, now we are watching rising sun, it will shed light to the future to invite sad people to Buddha land. Now here I command, there shall not be conflict in this world. There shall not be distrust in this world. There shall not be crime in this world. There shall not be evil spirit in this world. There shall not be the devil in the next world. Only the ideal world, utopia, shall be realized. So what is happening now is the destruction of the old civilization to create this new civilization that Master has declared that he came to create. So even in the middle of what can seem a terrible thing, we should be rejoicing, because this is the washing away of the old so we can create the new. And when we have this faith and this understanding, it makes it a lot easier to live in this world. Because if we feel that this world's everything and everything's gone crazy and oh my gosh, look what's happening, people can be really confused and torn apart, and there can be a lot of distress and suffering. But when we have the perspective of the truth, we can almost say, thank God for this, because this world needs to change. This world's it's gone too far out to one way. It needs to come back onto the path of God, or the middle way is spoken about in Buddhism. So Brahma is considered to be the creator of the universe. Vishnu is the preserver, and Shiva's role is to destroy the universe in order to recreate it. So it's very colourful Hindu. I've got this picture which I got off Google, this picture of the three gods together. It's always so colourful. The Hindu religion's got beautiful, colourful pictures. They're sitting on a lotus flower, which is often used in Buddhism as well, the lotus flower. So the one on the left is Brahma, and the one in the middle is Vishnu, and the one on the right is Shiva. And Shiva is often depicted with holding this trident. The trident has the three prongs on it. That actually represents the creation, the preservation, and the destruction, the three prongs on the trident. He has a snake around his neck, which shows his power. He often has beads. On his forehead, he also has a symbol of the third eye. Shiva was known to have a third eye that could look inwards, but also be used to destroy. Yeah, so those are the three, but ultimately they are also seen as to be, they may have come just as now with Master Okawa, as Alcantari being born on earth in a physical body. When a any energy, even a god, is born into a physical body, is very restrictive. And that's why it's hard for people to see a person and imagine that they could be a god. But later people realize, the greatness of the person. But behind if these were three people as human beings living in bodies may not seem so powerful, but behind them is this incredible, massive energy. They're actually really part of God. The more I looked into and studied up on these three, I really felt that they are really the essence of Alcantari. Maybe Master will talk more about that later, but if one's a creator, one's a preserver, and one's a destroyer, and they are in Hindu, they're really like not people, but they're more like the energy that creates the gods. That was one of the things they said in Hinduism. They're not really embodiment of humans, they are the energy that creates gods. I thought, well, if the energy that creates gods, that's the same energy as Alcantari, energy that creates the gods. So let's listen to then. So this spiritual message from Master Okawa on God Shiva was about 1 hour and 40 minutes long, and he had three people asking questions, and so of course that's too long for us to listen to today. But I welcome you and invite you to come and watch this lecture at some time in its entirety. But what I've done is I've gone through and taken some of the key points. So today we've got around about 40 minutes of excerpts, and they're broken down to about 2 or 3 minutes each, and then between each one I've just made a few key points so that we can really think about it and focus about it, because when we listen to something for 1 hour and 40, so many points go past and we really miss them. So it's just a chance to really focus on some of these key points. So the first one, let's just listen to Master Okawa give an introduction to God Shiva. So this one, at this part, he's talking as Master Okawa. Actually, you'll see by the time I do the second excerpt, where he's already called on Shiva, and he starts speaking as Shiva, you can immediately see quite the difference between him as Master Okawa and when he's speaking as Shiva.
それではですね、今日はシバ神の霊言取りたいと思います。初めてだと思ってたんですが、実は2011年にインド巡釈の前に、現地の霊界事情を調査するためにビシュヌとシバを呼んでいたようではあります。ただ、前回は出たのは多分インドの民族心的な側面で出てきているのではないかと思いますが、実は地球レベルで見るとシバ神的な機能というのは一つの概念というか機能としては存在するので、もう一段、人格心的でないものも存在しているのではないかというふうに考えています。そのシバ的なるものがいろんな姿をとっていろんな国や民族に出ているのではないかと考えております。諸説はありまして、解説しても虚しいんですけども、簡単に言えばインド的に言えばビシュヌ神とシバ神というのはやや対峙されるような神であって、神のいわゆるヤヌス性ですよね。神のすごい良い面っていうか人類に優しい面と怖い面を象徴しているところがあると思います。そしてヒンドゥー教というインドのいろんな小宗教をまとめて今来ているようなものの中には、釈尊の仏教なんかですね、といった釈尊もビシュヌ神のこの顔の一つとして、人格化したものとして、吸収されているように、言われています。で、シバ神というと破壊の神と普通思われるんだけれども、必ずしもどうもそうではないみたいなところもありまして、その意味でインドの人の霊感観というか悟りは尋常ではなかったのかもしれませんけれども、善と悪は悪と善というのがそんな簡単に、分かれるものではなくて、輪っかのように回っているような感じに見てたんだろうというふうに思うんですね。だから、シバ神の機能っていうのはガンジス川の氾濫した時のような感じのものすごい憤怒の形相っていうか怖い面がありますけれども、田畑も 人間を流されてしまうような面がありますけれども、しかしまたそうした川の氾濫が次なる豊穣を招く面もあるので、だからそうした破壊の神ではあるのに吉祥天としての面も持っているような描かれ方をすることが多くあります。
So that was a great way of putting it, like the river Ganges. You know, it was because the river Ganges flooded, even though it created so much destruction, but it was because of that regular flooding of the Ganges, it enabled to ensure that there would be great crops in the future. So he said that Hindus believe his powers of destruction and recreation are used even now to destroy the illusions and imperfections of this world, paving the way for beneficial change. So that's perfect in today's world, right? The ways of thinking in the world are so wrong. We need to wash away this way of thinking in some great big way. Actually, and I was thinking that in the movie The Laws of the Sun, where Master Okawa showed how life was created on Venus before it was on Earth, some billions of years ago, and Venus reached a state of perfection. And then the God came and said, okay, you've reached a state of perfection, no further progress is going to be possible. So there will now be upheaval on this planet. And so I want you to think about creating, starting all over again on planet Earth. It's the same thing again, that energy of God, which has the destructive force that can choose to create, to destroy so that some further creation can happen. And you think, well, why would that ever happen? But as we learn in happy science, happiness comes from progress. Happiness comes from the progress. So if you reach a state of stagnation when no progress is further, it's the end of happiness. So it's like an artist painting a beautiful picture. When you finish that picture, you're finished. You can't just stand by and admire it for the rest of your life. An artist wants to start creating again. So out with the old, start again with the new. And the joy comes from the creation. And Master said, according to Hindu belief, this destruction is not arbitrary but constructive. Okay, so now we'll watch the first one where we're actually hearing the question from Mr. Fuji-san, and then an answer from God Shiva. So in this point now, I've skipped the part where Master called Shiva and invited Shiva to come and speak, and we've jumped straight now into watching Shiva, God Shiva.
パンデミックというのがですね、昨年末から、これは中国発ではありますけれども、世界中に広がって、大変な地球規模での危機を生み出してます。ウイルス感染の危機もありますけれども、これがやがて経済危機にも波及するかもしれないという状況なんですけれども、このあたりは今何かお考えになっておられるところはございますでしょうか。
世界中に広がって、第一波は様子見でいろんな国に行ってどういうふうになるか見ている状態かなとは思うし、日本も一息ついているところではあろうがな。ただまだ終わってはいないので、一応大きな国隅々まで行き渡った後、次の狙いをつけて第2波第3波が来ると思っているので、今の被害がまだ始まり序章だと思うよ。
今のこの危機というのが非常に、ある意味で真意であるとか、天意である、これを読み解かなければならないのではないかということが、人類に期待されているかと思うんですけれども、そのあたりについては何かお考えございますでしょうか。
どっちとも言えんな。だから人類自身のもしきたらしたるものでもあるし、そういうことをある程度我々も予想しておったということもそういうことでもあるんでね。今あれだな、中国が責任を認めないので、緊張がまた高まっては来ているんだろう。自然に発生したかに言ってるからな。自然に発生したという言い方になれば、私のような、神が起こしたということになる。結論はそういうことだからな。だから、人工的にといえば、人間が起こしたが、それを我々が全く予想してないわけではないからな。 まあどっちかということではあるけども、まあ中国人の言うことはまあ大体正反対であるからして、まあ、自分たちはやってないという場合はやってるということだな、まあそういうふうにとっていいんではないかな。だから最初の頃には習近平が誤っていたのが途端に何ヶ月経てば忘れて、全部正反対のことを言ってるからな。まあそういう国なんだよ。いや私は破壊は何でも破壊するわけじゃないんでね、一応単に破壊するだけだったら悪魔に分類されてもいいわけなんで、神に分類されるというのはまあ一応正義の建前があっての破壊であるんでね、まあそういうことなんですよ。でまあ中国にはね、まあ私の考えとは違ったものがもう一種類いるんでね、これとの戦いもちょっと長く続いてはいるんで、まあかつては中東の方もいたんだが、アーリマンという存在だな、これがちょっと14億の人口を拝見してね思っておるので、まあ破壊力を持った者同士でも戦いをしては今いるんでね、シバ神対アーリマンの戦いは起きているので、まあこれはまあどうなるかだな。
So this is a big revelation, So Ahriman, I don't know if anyone's heard of Ahriman before, but we're going to learn more about Ahriman as we go along today. But Ahriman is really like, it's really the devil of the universe. So I mean, we talk about the devil on earth, but even beyond, from other places in the universe, there's also dark energy. And that dark energy is really what created the hell, caused the fall of Lucifer in the first place. So there's going to be a bit more about that later on. So I won't talk too much about that now. Lucifer didn't fall just for no reason. He actually fell because he was influenced by this Ahriman. If you watch the Laws of the Universe Part 0 and Laws of the Universe Part 1, you can learn a lot more about this Ahriman as well. But I thought also was very interesting here when he said about if I were to just destroy, I could be categorized as a devil, but I am a god. He said that means I destroy for justice. And this is a key difference. There's destruction for the sake of creation or the sake of justice, but there's also destruction for the sake of hatred and just for the sake of want to destroy because you're angry. I mean, if you look at the 9/11 when they flew the planes into those buildings, there was nothing good ever going to come out of that. That was just a whole lot of angry people wanting to take some revenge. So, we have to think about this destruction, whether it's for justice and for the idea of a new creation, or whether it's just out of a hatred. He said, in China there's an existence that has a different thinking than I do, and the fight with this being has been going on quite long. It's called Ahriman, and this being has taken root in the population of 1.4 billion. Okay, later on he talks, I don't think I've got this particular part of the clip in there, but he talks that, Mao Zedong, who was the founder of communism in China, who was influenced by Marxism, when he died, it took a while because the people in China loved him so much and believed in him so much that actually their thoughts held him up for a long time. But since that time, time has gone by now and people aren't thinking about him so much and loving him so much, and he's now fallen and is now in a very deep part of hell, which is reserved for the people who are leaders that lead people astray. Our Master's always said the worst part of hell is the place where people come as like religious or political leaders that lead people astray. Murder is one thing, to kill a person you take their life. But if you become a leader that changes people's thinking and their ideology and take their mind in the wrong way, that's far more critical and dangerous. So Mao is now being held in a deep part of hell, but he was, before that time, he was very much influencing Xi Jinping. So Xi Jinping is actually, his mind is being controlled by devils. His thinking is not coming from heaven. He wants to create this empire that is based on his way of thinking, which is really just about controlling people and subduing people and become the ruler of the world. So there's a difference between becoming a ruler because you want to control people and being a ruler because you want to be able to create a utopian world. A big difference. So he said God Shiva versus Ahriman is happening now. Okay, so let's watch this next excerpt from God Shiva.
と今おっしゃられた通り破壊の神と呼ばれているけれども、アーリマンという、存在に対して正義を掲げて戦っているご存在であると、そしてそれは現代のみならず非常に長い歴史があると、
優しくて愛を説くだけの神ではだって戦いはしにくくあろうよ。だからもう一つの機能を持っているのさ。それはね、だから仕方がないね。そういうことはやっぱあるわな。
そうしますと神の正義を体現しておられると、
つもりではいるけどね。
そうしますとまずそのアーリマン、中国にもそのアーリマンが指導に入っているということでございますので、そのアーリマンに対してはこれからどのような考えてどのように対処される、
これと対抗すべく、中国は14億の人口背景にな一国で世界の規模に今なろうとしてるからな。インドが今人口が12億13億と増えてきて間もなく逆転すると思うので、経済力技術力とも今向上されておりますので、中国の世界支配は目論んでおるんだろうと思うけど、どこそうはさせないつもりでインドが今立ちはだかろうとは、しているんでね、だからシャクソンも生んだ国ではあるんでね、インドはね。で、ヨーロッパアメリカともつながりがあることが国の科学で証明されているんでね。だから中国的なものが勃興してきて世界を支配して、中国的なものが支配することが善だという考えを立てようとしているんだけれども、神とおぼしき者すらいないという状況ではあるわな。そこにいるのは、破壊の神ではなくて破壊の悪魔がそこには存在すると思われるんでね、このアーリマンというのは中東起源で欧米でエクソシストなどの対象になっている悪魔の根源の一つではあるんでね、私たちは地球から追い出すつもりでいるんだけどね。
And we often make clear, and I want to make clear again, that when we talk about China and the Chinese people, we have no problem with the Chinese people. We are talking about the Chinese Communist Party, the leadership of China, because that will lead the 1.4 billion people towards suffering and unhappiness. Master said, I love all people. The Chinese people are children of God. They are wonderful people. But when you have about 60 million people, which is the Chinese Communist Party, who are really the ones that are reaping the benefits through corruption of the rewards of all the wealth that they've been able to create, the overall people in China aren't really getting a great lot of benefit on average. The Chinese Communist Party are. I was just watching something the other day. They must be getting desperate in China because even now they're going to areas of middle-class people where quite reasonable houses are, and they decide to claim this land. So because in China you can't own land, the government owns all the land, and they're turning up with bulldozers and just kicking people out of their homes and clearing the land for a new development. So they would have sold that to developers. So the government seems to be really struggling and trying to create new ways of creating wealth. In the past it was just normally poor villages that they would do that to. But now they're even starting to do this with middle class people. So when God Shiva said, well, gods who are gentle and only preach love would find it hard to fight. That is why I have different function. I think of Jesus. Jesus is such a great spirit. He's such a high spirit. He could be considered a god. But when he came to earth, he taught people that not to have violence, to practice love. And if someone slapped you, just turn it off with the other cheek, right? So that's a different way of thinking. That's a real love. That even if someone hurts you, don't try and hurt them back. Just forgive them and love them. But there's another side that sometimes it requires fighting, because You know, if we don't and we allow evil to grow and manifest, then too many people end up suffering under that type of regime. Yes. He said, I believe that what they have is not the God of destruction, but the devil of destruction. Such a clever way of putting it. Not the God of destruction, but the devil of destruction. He said, we are trying to kick it out of earth. So this battle with Ahriman has been going on for a long, long, long time. Millions and millions and millions of years. Hundreds of millions of years. Because we know from the laws of the sun that actually it was about 100 million years ago that Lucifer fell. And in this talk he actually spoke how it was Ahriman that was responsible for the fall of Lucifer. So hundreds of millions of years. You know, we as humans might think of our life as being a few thousand years, or life on earth, such a short period of time. But Master has declared from a long time ago that life has been happening on earth for a lot longer than what humans realize. And we've had lots of battles. We've had even battles with people from outer space. We've had nuclear wars gone on in the past. And it was obliterated, and then everyone had to start from scratch and work its way back up again. So our history as humans on this earth is a lot longer than what we realize. Okay, let's watch another excerpt here. I'm going to move through the excerpts fast today because I had to do about 11 or 12 of these excerpts, and at the end I want to do a meditation, which is a meditation with the cosmic consciousness of Alcantari, because this lecture really is very cosmic, because the understanding, as we're going to hear some more on, about how we're also getting help, not just from this earth, but there's other factors that are helping us from outside of this earth. So I think the meditation on to become one with the cosmic consciousness of Alcantari will be really good at the end. So I want to do a 10-minute meditation at the end. So yeah, I'm going to move through these pretty quickly today.
アーリマンという中東にいた神は、その正義という観点から見たときに悪神とか悪なる存在だというふうに考えてよろしいんでしょうか。向こうは向こうの考え方が。
神という言葉をつけると、うぬぼれるし、間違いやすいな。だから少なくとも地獄の発生にも関わっておるであろうよ。だから七大天使を張っとったような人を地獄に引きずり下ろすのが普通の力で下ろせるわけがないだろうから、
その時も力を及ぼしていたっていう、
と思うよ。だから地球的神に対する反乱計画があったもんだと思われるね。
それ七大天使を引きずり下ろす時にはもうすでに存在していて、
いたと思うよ。
地球起源だと思っていたその悪魔の頭というものを作ったということ。
作ったんじゃなくて撃ち落としたんだよ。
撃ち落とした。
撃ち落としたんだよ。だからというか自分たちの考えの方に消えさせたというべきかもしれんがな。
その時からではシバ神様はその戦いに関わっておられたということになるわけです。
だから神の歴史の中にはな、かなり厳しい、奇跡も含めてだが人類に対して危機的な状況も何度も起きておるわな。その中で地球起源というか地球の歴史として計画されているものもあるからね。そちらの方は私も関わってはいるけれども、もう一つ別のものもあるから、その戦いは実に際どく難しく、そして諸宗教が対立する元にもなっているところがあるということだな。だから地球の中での陰と陽のところは上手にそれは合わさってできているところがあるんだ。それ以外のものが入ってきているんでね、それが混乱を起こしているわけね。だからいろんな宗教に行ってちょっとずつ狂わしてきているわね。だからイスラム教みたいなのが出てもこれにアーリマン的なものが影響してくるとイスラム教が狂ってくる。この狂った部分が地球全体に影響を及ぼして、来るわけね。例えばね。
例えばつい最近、一応撲滅はされたとは宣言はあったんですけど、イスラム国とかですね、ああいったあたりにも影響を与えてたっていう、近場で言えば。
難しいけどな、たくさんあるんで、この、ゲリラテロ等の戦いがいっぱいあるので、どれがどうかはいちいち言うのは難しい ことだけども、イスラムはまだまだ混乱に入っていくと思うけども、キリスト教対イスラム教の戦いだけではないものがもう一つあると思われる。そのイスラムも神の指導はあったとは思うんだけど、それをすり替えていこうとしていくもの、要するに地球の地獄界の悪魔だけの力じゃ足りないので、それ以外のものが働いてきて、この宗教ごと民族ごと丸ごと引きずり込んでいこうとしている面はあるように思うな。
そうしますと、キリスト教においてもイスラム教においても、そのすり替えが起きてきたところの根源に、今おっしゃっておられたようなある種宇宙的なっていいますか、そういったものの働きかけを現に歴史の中でし続けてきたっていうことでございましょうか。
だからまあそういう、二元論なら割に分かりやすいところもあるんだけど、三元論的になってくるとちょっと分かりにくくなってくるんで、我々はこの確かに破壊の面も持っておるが、同時にその、文明の裸期とかそういう時に新しい文明を作って人々を進化させるために、やってる面もあるんだけども、それとは別の憎しみを持ったエンティティがやってきて、かき混ぜようとするんでな、それで余計わからなかった。
So very interesting, we see many difficulties in religions, fighting amongst religion. So what he's putting forward here is the idea that there's another force, just not between the different sides of religion, that could compete and converse and try to come to a deeper understanding of their religions through their arguments. There's another force that comes in that creates confusion. And so maybe that's why we find in Islam, Islam which actually means peace, but there's not a lot of peace now. There's a lot of violence, and you get things like ISIS come up, and they start to act in ways that seem to be so away from the real truth of the religion. So he said, at least it has been involved in the creation of hell. There is no way a being with normal powers can drag someone who is one of the 7 archangels to hell. I believe it had the plan to rebel against the God of the earth. He's talking about Ahriman. So this, the archangels are from the 8th dimension. When we've studied the laws of eternity, we know at the very top is Alcantari. And Alcantari is the God of the earth. But, Alcantari is actually created from the primordial God, who's like a 20-plus dimensional being. The primordial God creates universes, right? So primordial God can create a universe, which is it's like an entity that's aware of itself as a universe with its own ability to create. And then that universe, within it, will create galaxies. So the universe holds within itself the galaxies. So those galaxies are also created entities that have their own will and a plan and to create. So those galaxies then create stars. Right, so a galaxies are full of stars, billions of stars that are created by that one galaxy, which is contained within that universe. And then those stars create the planets, and those planets have a consciousness of a planet. They have a duty and an understanding and a will and a desire to create as a planet. And from a planet, which is a 10-dimensional being or consciousness, we come down to 9th dimension, which is the first or the highest realm that human consciousness can exist. So Alcantari at the top of the 9th dimension is a consciousness that was created by the primordial God to be the God of a planet that can create life and develop life on a planet, you see? But it's all part of that one consciousness, but just taken down to different stages of awareness. So this... so that's the 9th dimension. Well, the 8th dimension is a very, very high level. And as he said, it's no normal being can drag an 8th-dimensional being down to become a devil. It took something from outside, because at that time before he was there were a few, as we learn in the laws of the sun, there were a few souls that had become corrupt. Because if you study the laws of the sun, you'll find that one of the spirits that had come to the earth from way back had the idea that in order to create more souls, they created a machine that would enable them to photocopy souls, take one soul and divide it into 5, because they wanted to create more souls on earth. But those souls that they did that with, unfortunately, lacked spirituality, and they went corrupt, and they were the ones that created at the very beginning a bit of a shallow realm of hell, you could say. But then, so there's no real big problem at that stage. There's no real strong energy that could cause an 8-dimensional being to suddenly become a devil. So what he's saying is that for the time when his name was originally Lucifer, because all the archangels have L, like Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, they all have L. L means like an Alcantari. They all had L on the end of the name, and that was why he was Lucifer. But after he became corrupt, his name was changed to Lucifer, and he became the king of hell. But we're realizing now the reason he ended up in that position was there's another force that's outside of this earth, from another universe, that's a flip side, a dark side of the universe, that actually came to try to create havoc on this earth. And he influenced Lucifer. It's so great to know this. This is a wonderful history, right? I mean, this is why Alcantari came to the earth, to reveal everything to us, tell us exactly what's been going on. Okay, so he said, the yin and yang, positive and negative on earth, have been woven efficiently, but there is something outside of that which has interfered, and that is causing confusion. So we have the aspect of destruction, but at the same time, we also destroy in order to evolve humanity by creating a new civilization when a civilization is at its end. And this is now. We're at the end of one civilization, the beginning of another. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it wonderful? I'm so happy to be at time on this earth, even though we're going to go through this, but that doesn't matter. Everything's temporary anyway. We're always going to leave this earth one day anyway. Our lives are temporary. The real world is the spirit world, where we live as souls, which live in eternity. We never die. The body can die, but I never die. So even the worst case scenario, if I keep my mind bright and keep my mind connected with the heavenly world, the worst case scenario is during all this confusion, I die and I'll go back to heaven. Is that such a bad thing? It's not such a bad thing, right? So even the worst case scenario isn't bad. It's wonderful. If you died actually trying to serve God, you could go back to heaven with a wonderful feeling of, oh, I did my best, I tried, feeling like, yeah, this is my life was worthwhile, my death was worthy. So, yeah. So please have no fear. He said, however, there's an entity with animosity that is different from that which comes and causes confusion. Well, knowledge is power. And when we come to understand how he works and what he's doing, we don't get caught up in the confusion. We see through it. Okay, let's listen to the next excerpt.
これまでの話によりますと、そのアーリマンという存在、今現在ですと中国の方に根城を築きつつあるということかと思うんですけれども、この力が今大きくなりつつあるというふうにご覧になっていると。
だから中国はね、本当に毛沢東を壊してね、孔子像を立ててね、そうした儒教的なものをきちっと表に戻して、あるいはかつて仏教国でもあったんで、それも大切にして、それを前面に押し出しながら世界と協調していくっていうなら、同じ流れには多分入るであろうけれどもね、今違うものを目指してはいると思うね。だからそのアーリマン系統にも確かに文明の進化度としてはね、高いものも一部あることはあるんでね、それに惹かれておるんだろうと思うが、だからはっきりもっと言えばね、人間を神に似せて作ったもの、神に向かって進化できるものとして作ったものという考えとね、人間を将棋の駒みたいに考えて、敵と戦って、その犠牲にする、遊び的に思っている存在もいるということかな。
昨年、大川隆法総裁先生が毛沢東の霊言っていうものを行われまして、奨励して読んだところ、最終的に判明してきたのは、毛沢東というのはまさにそういう将棋の駒のように使うような価値観を持った方として、その14億をかなりその奴隷のように見て上で、最終的には霊的な目で見ますと地球規模の最大級の悪魔というような認定もされているんですけれども、さらにその奥にそうしたアーリマン的影響があるということでしょうか。
難しいんだよね。毛沢東の魂そのものは おそらく地球の霊界の中では、無間地獄と言われるそういう、指導者等がもうこれ以上の悪を犯さないように、独房みたいに入れられている場所にとらわれていることは間違いない。だからそういう意味では地球の神々が作られた磁場の中で封印はされているけれども、この毛沢東主義が70年80年と続いて、この中国の広大な国土と人民の数を捉えていることも事実であるので、この全体を捉えてここから出さないようにしている力っていうのはまたもう一つ別のものも働いているわけで、だから地獄の最深部のそういう無間地獄にこのリーダーは捉えられているけども、それを丸ごとそれをひっくり返して地球の霊界磁場をひっくり返そうとしている者がいるということだわな。だから善を悪に悪を善に変えようと思っているもっと悪いのが地球に働きかけていて、それは地球のやっぱり生きている人間の思考考えることの総量がどちらに傾いていくかによって変わってくることがある。それはあなた方が大昔に最初の映画を作った時にそういうこと光と闇の量によって変わることをなんか言ってたと思うけど、そういうものでくるっとリンゴがひっくり返るように、水の中でな、バケツの中でひっくり返るようにくるっと逆転にする、そういうターニングポイントを目指してやってるやつらがいるということだわな。
Talked about the chess pieces. I remembered reading in this book, China's Hidden Agenda. It was written a long time ago by Master Okawa. He did a spiritual message from Xi Jinping before Xi Jinping even became the president of ruler of China. It was before that time. And in this interview, there was a part where he was saying about what he was going to do, how he was going to take over, how he was going to take control of the world. And some of it got quite aggressive, and so one of the interviewers said, but if you do that, you'll create a war. And Xi Jinping said, hey, well, that's fine. He said, we have 1.3 billion people. I don't mind losing 100 million people in a war, if it means I have to have a war he said, we've got too many people anyway. It's a good way to get rid of some of them. And also to accomplish my goal. So to imagine just thinking as a person, I don't mind losing 100 million people. If that's using people as chess pieces, just exactly what he was talking about in here. People aren't people anymore. And when he said about the difference between people who see people as being similar to God with the chance to move closer to God, that's like the Buddhist or Christian teaching where we are children of God. And because we are children of God, we have this divine nature in us, and that we have the opportunity and possibility to move closer to God and become more like God through our lives, to develop on a path towards God, rather than just being materialistic beings that can be used as chess pieces. So he said he is thinking of changing good to evil and evil to good, because there's the way of thinking on earth, if you think about it, the way we think as human beings is how we're taught to think in a lot of ways. We go to school, we get an education, and we have things in our life like religion. And religion has tried to teach us about good and evil, what is right, what is wrong. So, if we have the right sort of philosophies on earth, people grow up thinking about, for instance, in happy science, the essence of love is giving. Giving means to do to others to make them happy without needing to take something back. So it's really important to have a right way of thinking and a right philosophy. But he's saying here, though, is that what these spirits behind the scene, the evil spirits behind the scene, they want to change the whole thinking on the earth. They want to flip it upside down, so the earth is filled with a negative way of thinking. He said the worst thing about that is that this force is influencing earth, and it changes based on which way the total thoughts of living people on earth lean towards. So the more that this way of thinking grows, the more it influences the earth, and the more the type of people we have here, and the different type of, even he went on to say, it can create a situation where different types of beings could even come to the earth. I think he talks about that a bit later on. Okay, let's progress and to the next.
お話を伺ってますと、 シバ神様ご自身はもしかしていろんな方とこうちょっと連携されてるといいますか、こちら側の我々の側のちょっとややその同じような問題意識を持って、その宇宙的存在の方々含めて動いておられる方もいらっしゃいますんで、そこと連携したりとか連絡というかですね、我々のそういったこう動きとも気をいつにされておられるもんですから、そこら辺ともこう関係が終われないようにもこうちょっと推察もされるんですが、その辺っていうのはいかがな感じなんでございましょうか。
だから宇宙から来てね、地球を守りに来ている者もいればね、地球やっぱり悪い目的で地球を狙っている者もいる、そういう力も均衡してはいるけどね、地球霊界長い時間かけて作ってはきたけれども、目指すものとそれを破壊そらしていこうとしているものと、両方ある。で彼らの目的が成就して地球がそういうふうに価値観変わって住む人たちの思いが全部変わってくると、別の種類の者たちが地球に住めるようになってくるということだろうね、多分ね。そういうことはさっきの地ならしがあるわけですよね。
That was where he mentioned it. So actually, this is something way back. Master always said that the greatest power that this earth has to protect itself and defeat the enemy is love. He said there's many beings beyond outside this earth that are far more advanced than Earth, and we can tell they're more advanced by the mere fact they've reached a point where they could travel in space to go from their planet to our planet. We can't do that yet. We will soon maybe be able to do space travel, but at the moment we cannot, which means technologically we're less advanced than some other beings in the universe. So it means if they're technically advanced, they've actually probably also got greater weapons than us. So we wouldn't have a chance against them technologically in a war. But Master always said, the greatest weapon we have to protect the earth is love. And the reason for that is that there are these two opposing groups of extraterrestrial beings. And some of them are, in the really enlightened ones, are also highly, highly developed. And there's a rule in the universe, like a galactic rule, that says one group from another planet are not allowed to interfere with another planet unless that planet is on the verge of destruction, unless the people are about to wipe themselves out. It's a bit like when America might have gone and stepped into, they might have said like Iraq, they've got different reasons for it, but if a country was about to take itself out, if there was a massive war, the United Nations may decide to send soldiers in to take over because those people, so many people are going to be suffering and the country's in civil war or in turmoil. So same thing from a planet's perspective is that if a planet is going to be taken out or the people are going to be creating too much suffering or the people are going to destroy the planet, it gives the excuse for an outside force to step in. Our Masters even said in the past there have been many times they've tried to manipulate things to create that situation where they would then have the excuse to come in. So they sometimes try to create turmoil on Earth which would give them the excuse to step in. So love is the answer here on Earth. We can really defend this planet through love. He also said one group came to Earth in order to protect it, but the other group has evil intentions, and the aim is to take over the Earth. If the disruptive side fulfills its purpose and manages to reverse the value system of Earth, then the overall thoughts of people on Earth would change accordingly, and as a result, it will enable a completely different species to inhabit the Earth. He's spoken before about one group, and I think many people on Earth have heard this now. I think many people are waking up to the idea that there really are aliens. Maybe 20, 30 years ago people say, I wonder if there's really aliens. But I think most people now on the Earth begin to think, of course there's aliens. We can't be the only life in this whole great big universe. And so Master's done a lot of readings of different types of aliens, and he said this universe is teeming with life and different types of life. But one group, and they do have good and bad of this group even, but they're called the Reptilians. But there is a group of Reptilians that are actually a very negative force. They lust for power, and really their evolution has been like the law of the jungle. So on Earth here, what we aim to is progress and evolve through two sides of love and wisdom. Love and wisdom are the main pillars of the development of God of this earth. So we aim to see souls evolving through using love and wisdom. But for the reptilians in their evolution, it was like the jungle where the strongest survive, right? So strong over the weak, the strong dominate. And some of those beings were, I'm not going to get into this too much today, but some of those beings were allowed to come to this earth way back in the early stages of the development of the earth, because Alcantari saw that having an aspect to that in earth would be good for competition. You know, it's a really strong competition type thinking. It's not just all lovey-dovey and kindness. It actually adds the element of competing, which also brings progress. So there was a certain amount of that allowed, but his thinking here is that if the value system of the earth was reversed and it became all about competition and taking love and the strongest survives and strongest overrules over the weak, then we could have this earth just become the domain of like a reptilian species, which of course we don't want. You know, we want to be a planet of love. Earth was created as a planet of love. Okay, so let's hear this next excerpt.
そうしますとまさにその地球霊界の側の戦いってことでちょっとご質問させていただきますとですね、今ちょっとルール問題になっている中国との関係で言いますと、やはりそのアメリカっていうのが非常にキーになってくるわけですが、実は今のトランプ大統領ですね、魂の兄弟の方の霊言取った時に、自分自身の自己認識として、私はどちらかというと芝的な存在って言いますか、そういう表現をされておられたんですが、ちょっとトランプ大統領どう見られるかとか、あるいはそことのもし何かご関係って言いますかね、そんなものがあるのかないのかあたり含めて、ちょっとそのアメリカをどう見るか、トランプ大統領をどう見るかっていうのを、
中国から見ればそれは、トランプ大統領がしばしに見えるかもしれんね。向こうは破壊ばっかりしてるようにしか見えない、そんな感じだろうかね。巨人ゴリアテみたいな感じで暴れてるようにしか見えないで、感情がコントロールできなくて暴れて人の領土に踏み込んできては文句をつけてなんか鉄球をもう振り回してるような感じに見えるのは見えておるんだろうね。あり得る価値観の戦いではあるんだけどね。でも最低としては、最低っていうのは判定としては、地球人的には唯一の無神論がこの世のプラグマティックな面での貢献するところはこれを認めなきゃいけないので、それを許容してはいるんだが、それが本当に神や仏、高級神霊を全部否定するような文明になるなら、絶対にこれは許せないところであるんで、一部肯定し他のものを否定しているけど、そういうややこしい考え方はできないので、白か黒にしてしまうところがあるわけよね。でトランプさんもアメリカの中ではまた別な意味で足を引っ張られてるところもあるんでね。だから本人がシバ神とは本人が思ってることが知らんが、ヤハウェみたいなところもあるかもねと言ってる面は確かにあると、敵と思われるものを放浪してしまうようなところを持ってはいるのかもしれないけども、一方習近平の心はもう毛沢東を超えて真の始皇帝、みたいにもう一回なりたいぐらいの気持ちはあるから、本当の狙いは皇帝になることではないかなとは思うんでね。それは大変だよ。
具体的にアメリカとかですね、トランプ大統領にしばしのからちょっと影響を与えてるといいますか、みたいな、あるいはその指導とかですね、そういった要素っていうのはその中国との対比の中で
あるかもね。同じ役者がさ、片方は正義のヒーローのロッキーをやり、片方はランボーをやってマシンガン撃って撃ちまくっているようなところがあるからな。ランボーの方がしばしになろうがと思うが、同じ役者が二役のやれるけど、両方ヒーローはヒーローなんだけどね、多少人間的ないろんな面も持っているヒーローと、もう一段なんていうか 目的ゴール的に戦うヒーローとかあるっていうことはな、このアーリマンってやつはなかなか底知れぬもので、それは宇宙に起源がもともとあるもので、正当な宇宙ではなくて本当別の宇宙の通路を通ってきているものであるので、ビシュヌなんかが据えているこの宇宙の中に入ってないもう一つの別宇宙から来ているものだと思うので、そちらの価値観は多分違うものもあるんだろうけれども、このあなた方が生きているこの銀河系宇宙を含むこの宇宙の価値観はこちらの方の神は別に存在しているので、そちらをそれ以上入れる気はないということだな。宇宙規模ではそうした大きな宇宙がいくつかあって違ったもちろん進化の仕方はしてはいるんだけどね、この挑戦を受けているというところかもしれませんね。
Quite amazing, isn't it? How, I mean, actually, it's such a big concept, but actually, the way he describes it makes it very clear that this Ahriman can travel through ways, because normally this earth's protected, but he seems to be able to travel in ways which are not conventional to the gods, to be able to stop him from coming through. So he's found a way into this earth's spiritual plane in a way where the gods haven't been able to block him. So, and as he said, there's other universes out there. Our Milky Way and our galaxy, our universe, has a certain way of values that were created for everything to evolve by. But as he said, there's other universes which have got completely different thought patterns, and we seem to be being influenced from one of these. Yes. He said this universe, including the Milky Way, a galaxy where you currently live, has a set of values and its own gods. These gods have no intention of accepting Ahriman into their systems. He also mentioned in here Donald Trump. A lot of people in America, maybe in the world, don't like Donald Trump. But as he mentioned here, he could be a part of Shiva. People don't like to see destruction. Maybe they think he's so coarse, he's so rough, and he does things, and he's just tearing things down. But maybe this is how Shiva works. And personally, I love Donald Trump. I don't mind saying that. And I get a lot of flack when I put such a thing online. But because I really think that the man is really honest, and he really does love people, and he really does want to make a change. And listening to his speech yesterday on the 4th of July, where he was talking about how the value systems of the West are being undermined and by this socialist thinking of the left that are trying to destroy our current society by trying to make out that how everything we've done is so bad, and how the white man since he got in America has been so evil, and all the things he has done so bad, and that we need to, pulling down statues, even pulling down statues of people who fought to free the slaves. It's like the destruction, talk about destruction based on just destruction and for vengeance. They're actually pulling down statues of people who fought to free the slaves. So it's mindless. So I feel that this change that we're going through, it's one of those things that the energy of Trump has certainly influencing China in a big way. He's almost the one that brought us to the situation, because when you put the tariffs on China, and China then started to fight back, and then next thing the virus came out, and it became the catalyst for everything that's happening. So I do believe, and since Master Okawa did the spiritual message from Trump, and also found that he was actually, his spirit was from a high dimension, and that he was connected to George Washington, and now we find out that he might be somehow connected to Shiva, I can truly believe that he is actually a man on a mission to change this world. And so if you do have any negative feelings towards Donald Trump, please try to see things from a different perspective and think that maybe this man is actually, is sometimes as rough as he might be, and sometimes the way his ways might seem so wrong, he may actually be on a mission from God to help change this civilization. Okay, let's listen to this next excerpt.
香港をめぐって今米中激突という流れになってるんです、緊迫してますけれども、この一部にはもう米中開戦になるんではないかという見通しもあるわけですけれども、そのあたりについて何かお考えはあります？それかもしくは 何かそういう局面で力をしばし自らお与えになられるというようなことはあるんでしょうか。
日本はね、おそらくそちらよりも善悪なんていうよりは不況が解消されるかどうかの方に頭は行く。中国がたっぷり金を持っておればもちろんそれは魅力ではあろうけども、中国もマイナス成長に入りますのでね。でアフリカとか一帯一路構想が崩壊するかどうか、これ瀬戸際だね。だからアメリカの国内分裂と中国のこの一帯一路戦略の崩壊、これはかかっているので、新しい文明の潮流のぶつかり合いといえば、その通りではあろうし、先行きはその人権思想を強く持っているヨーロッパやアメリカの考え方による民主主義的、政治、議会政治とそんなものを無視して国家の目的の方を前面に押し出してくる中国的な考え方で、これは AI という新しい武器が出てきて、この AI による支配、人間支配が始まって、この一部の特権階級だけがその AI を使って人々を服従させられるっていうスタイルだね。この AI をアラーの神に置き換えればイスラム教だって同じことはできないことはない、スタイルだよね。いや、これを今君たちはこういう言い方は不謹慎だが、この未来文明の分岐点に本当に今まさに今2020年が未来社会文明の分岐点だと思うよ。
That's a pretty big statement. And actually, back to the values system, when he talks about the difference between, like the West, and in particular, even Donald Trump now. Donald Trump's standing up for the Uyghurs. I mean, they're Muslims. People talk about, Donald Trump hating Muslims and hating blacks and he's racist and he's a bigot and all this stuff. Under his system, more women had jobs than before, more black people were employed than ever before. Now he's set sanctions on any people, individual people in China, leaders in China that have got, or any businesses that have anything to do with anything that is causing problems for the Uyghurs or for the anything to do with the Falun Gong and the organ transplants. So, he put sanctions on them. I mean, they're Muslims. Why didn't Iran or some of these other Muslim countries start standing up for the Uyghurs before them? I mean, there's 1 to 2 million Uyghurs that are put into concentration camps. They call them re-education camps. Re-education to teach you to think like the Chinese want you to think, or like the Xi Jinping wants you to think. And these people are tortured, and it's a prison. So Donald Trump's the one who stands up for these people. So yeah, this is where he believes in righteousness and human rights. Yeah, so when he said here about what you're seeing may very well be the clashing of tidal waves shaping the new civilization, and to be blunt, you're at the juncture of the future civilization. This is it. This is it. We're in the big game. There's no more pretending in the world anymore. And the 2020, Master said way back, he said 2020 will be the beginning of the golden age. 30 years ago, he said 2020 will be the beginning of the golden age. And I just thought, well, 2020 sounds nice, doesn't it? It's got a nice ring about it. So it's like, let's set that as the date that we work towards as being the beginning of the golden age. I had no idea that God had this big axe that was going to come along as such a decisive way to say, like January 2020, right, things started with the virus. The virus has changed the world. It's one part that's changed the world. Next going to become, as well as the virus, which is going to go on for the next couple of years, there's going to be the economic problem. I mean, I watched a lecture from Konosuke Matsuda, the founder of Panasonic. He's an 8-dimensional being. And he said there's a chance that, we could, there's so many different paths you can go. Nothing's determined. But, there's one path we could go where we ended up, being back to a stage where we're using wood rather than steel, right? Because you need to have a lot of technology to create steel. You need the electricity. You need the boats to be shipping the iron ore and this sort of thing. He said we could be going back to an age where we're using wood instead of steel. So another one that came from one of the high spirits, Edgar Cayce, who's an expert in health and also foreseeing the future. he predicted that in the virus itself, there'd be about finally there'd be about 4 billion people that get the virus, and about 800 million people would die. I mean, you know, there was a prediction that at one stage from one of them that half of China's population would be gone. Right? This is big results that really changed the world. Master actually, Shiva talks a little bit about this further on. He said this year 2020 is the diverging point to set the course for future societies and lay the foundation for the new civilization. Master's always said, why do you think Alcantari is here? You know, Alcantari is the god of the gods. He's the master of the masters. He's always said Alcantari is the one that sent all the saviors of the past. I sent Jesus, I sent Moses, I sent them all. I'm the one that they were referring to. He said, but a part of myself has now been born on earth inside Ryuho Okawa, as Ryuho Okawa. Don't you see what this means? Don't you see that this is the biggest thing that humankind has ever faced? He's always said that. And we thought, wow, that sounds great. Well, we've actually reached the day. We're now seeing it unfolding in front of us, exactly what he was talking about. I'm excited. I think it's great. I always felt in my life something big was going to happen in my life. Don't know if you felt the same way. I always thought something big's going to happen in my time. Okay, let's watch the next excerpt.
地球規模のその、破壊の神シバ神の視点から見ましてですね、今中国の、未来について考えますと、これからどのような一手を打たれてその着地させていくかっていう、
分断するしかない。
分断です。
基本的には中国分断です。
どういうふうに
分裂させなきゃいけない。一枚岩みたいなのよくないですね。
どのような構想をお持ちか、もしよろしければそれ一旦なりとも。
もう香港から南から資本主義自由主義の波で攻め寄せる。もう一つはウイグル、チベット、内モンゴル等からの反乱を起こす。これにインドやロシアからの勢力を加味して後押しさせる。そしてアメリカは香港や台湾南部から中国に対して圧力を加える。そうすると北京政府は内部で分裂が起き始める。だから鎖国派と開国派に追われて来るだろうね。だからあとは石油のルートや食料のルート等を遮断していく方法が兵糧攻めですね。いわゆる人口が多いのはプラスの面もあるが、人口が多いということは食料とエネルギーがなければ生きていけないことがあるので、あれだけ広大な国をシャットアウトできるかどうかは別だけれども、それをするならやっぱりロシアとインドを必ず取り込んで、日本をちゃんと軍事的に戦える国に変えなければダメだろうね。でオーストラリア等も当然中国の敵にしなきゃいけませんので、それからアジアの国ですね。だからそういうチャンスもあるとは思っている。これがどう動くか、いや本当にここ10年以内にいろんなことがバタバタ起きるから、思ってることは逆転するようなことがいっぱい起きてくる。逆転、さらに逆転いっぱい起きてくるかもしれないね。
Interesting. This lecture, I think it was about 2 months ago. So a lot of things have happened actually since he said that, like the India-China situation with the clash started on the border. I mean, India is so annoyed with China now. I mean, they've banned like these 30 apps. Indians, when you get the Indians going, right, they're passionate people. They're burning Chinese flags. They're burning pictures of Xi Jinping. They're really anti-China now. Australia has really started to create a distance of seen through it. So this was 2 months ago. This was before really the whole thing happened with with India and Australia. When he said Australia needs to become an enemy of China, not the Chinese people, Chinese Communist Party. Everything's about the Chinese Communist Party, for the freedom of the Chinese people. So yeah, this is what he predicts, and things will get bewilderingly busy. Okay, yeah. This is to see this foresight, to see what is this plan, and he could see how. See, that's why Russia also is China can be so stupid. I saw 2 days ago that there's and I've got one of the, I can't remember, it's one of those Russian names, it's very Vladivostok or something like that, but it's this place that's part of Russia that was once part of China. And it was during one of the wars, Russia gained control of this place, and it became then part of Russia and has been for quite some time now. And they were celebrating the time that it became theirs. And then they saw, it was put on a tweet, and then the people in China saw it. So then some Chinese leaders started making an issue about that's not Russian land, that's Chinese land, right? So now they start to create a fight with Russia. I mean, how stupid can you be? When you create a fight, you've got one with Japan going on the Senkaku Islands. You've got the whole South China Sea, you've got the Philippines against you, you've got the Vietnamese people against you, you've got the Taiwanese people against you, you've got the Hong Kong people against you, right? Then you start creating problems in Australia. So you get the Australian people against you, the American people against you for what you're doing. Then you start creating problems and beating people up and killing people on the Indian border. So now you've got the Indian people against you. And then you figure, hey, we've got one more border up over here called Russia. Let's pick a fight with Russia as well. It's so stupid. I'm glad they're so stupid. Okay, let's watch another excerpt.
世界大乱の情勢になっているので、近日いろいろその働きがはっきりと分かってくるというふうに考えていくということです。
多分君らはまだ生きてるだろうとは思うよ、おそらくね、まだそんなに生きてないというか、エルカンターレ財政中には起きることにはなってはいる。だからそのための救世主なんで、
本当にこういろんな霊人のさまざまなリーディングとかですね、霊言等のお話聞いて未来を聞きますと、非常に危険な未来が本当に想定されておりましてってことで 5段階目まで来るっていう方もいらっしゃるし、これはまだまだ本当に第2第3第4でそういう天変地異的なものも含めて考えられるってことで、
日本だって800人や900人死んだぐらいじゃ君まだその大急性侵攻なんか起きないでしょ、このぐらいじゃでしょ。
ということは
だってインフルエンザで7000人から1万人死ぬっちゅうのにさ、こんな800人やそこから死んだぐらいでそれ大急性が必要だって言うかい。そんなんじゃなくて新しいアビガンじゃない、もうちょっといい薬作れとかそれで終わりだろな。こんなもんじゃ終わらないんだよ。だからもしだよ、仮の話だけどね、アメリカと中国が突如巨大なドラゴン対、キングコングみたいな戦い始めた時は、俺は日本はそれは真っ青になるわな、おそらくはな、真っ青になるだろう。それになってくるともうちょっとこう舞台袖で見てるような緊張感が走ってくるからさ、もうちょっといろんなものの実相を明らかにすることができるとは思う。ただ今トランプさんがツイッター社と戦いながら本心はあなた方にも言わなくなってきてるから考えてる。
じゃあ今後バージョンアップされる可能性がバージョンアップされると。
イナゴだけ、君はイナゴ一生懸命読んでるけどさ、イナゴ同士で昔はズール氏の下でイナゴを読んどったかもしんないからさ、だけどあちらはもうちょっと近代的なこと考えてると思うから、もうちょっと待ったらいいよ。盛り上がってくるから、少なくとも今年大統領選があるからな。盛り上がりは長い時間ではなく、何かトピックスが起きるとは思うので、見てたら大川亮の応援演説はできないかもしれない状況かもしれないけどね。
Yeah, so as he said, like just because something happens, people haven't reached the point where they start calling out for the Savior. Things in the world are going to become so big that people start calling for the Savior. As he said, in Japan, maybe 800 or 900 people have died. People aren't ready to start calling for the Savior, and things are going to heat up a lot yet. When he mentioned the locusts, there was another spiritual message that Master Okawa did with a god called Zulu. It was an African god called Zulu. And he was saying how he was organizing for a locust plague to go to China. So, they said, even the space people said, we've got not just one thing. We're going to start with the virus. Actually, it's been described through Happy Science that the Chinese military were developing a virus in Wuhan. And they were planning to let this out on the world. That was actually their intention, to develop a virus and then let it go in the world. But these beings let it escape. They deliberately let, so it actually ended up shooting himself in the foot. So it wasn't supposed to come out when it did, but so that's why he said at the beginning there, if it was created by God, it would be God. If it was created by man, it'd be man, but actually we could foresee it. So he's saying it was actually created by man developing this virus from bats, and they were planning to use it in the later, but what they did was they enabled this virus to escape into China, so it came out early for them, at a time when they were preparing to do some battling against Hong Kong and Taiwan early on in this year. So, but this space person said, but that's just one. We've got like 5 things lined up. There's going to be that. And then he said, just wait, there are going to be some more. He said, I can't reveal too much because there's another side, which is the Ariman side, that if we reveal what we're going to do, then they can counter it, right? So they can't say too much what's going to happen. But I think what we're seeing right now is we can see it quite clearly. We've got the virus. The next, and there's also the economic situation, terrible economic situation in China at the moment, and it's going to get a lot worse. Then there is also the floods. You know, now the floods in China are just huge. I mean, it's quite possible that the dam, the Three Gorges Dam, could burst the way it's building up at the moment. And then there's the locusts, and the locusts have arrived. I was watching something the other day, and now there's some places being devastated by the locusts. So they said that they're going to keep going until the Chinese Communist Party stops and reflects and realizes this could be divine intervention. I saw on the day, you might have seen it, that they gathered for their meeting, their once-a-year meeting where the Chinese Communist Party come together to make their once-a-year plans and rulings. And the time, it was mid-afternoon, and they gathered, and suddenly the skies went dark. And then there was this huge storm with thunder and lightning. And people in China saying, oh my gosh, this is like God's angry with the Chinese Communist Party. So the people in China, they're quite religious people, even though the Chinese Communist Party aren't, they're atheists. But the people in China are realizing that something could be wrong, that God may not be happy with what's going on. Okay, so we're nearly through these, and then I want to do that meditation, so let's carry on.
宇宙的なことだけもちょっと一言だけをぜひご指導たまればと思いますけれども、今ヤイドロン様とかですね、R.A. ゴール様とかですが、メタトロン様とかですね、大きな宇宙的存在が高次元の光を投げかけてくださり、人類を指導してくださっております岡隆法総裁先生を通じてのみですけれども、そうした宇宙的存在の方々とシバ神様の今のインド的また地球的なグローバルな目のところとつながってはいるんでしょうか。
私はね替え玉なんよ。だからね大川修総裁補佐がねこのままで R.A. ゴールさんが犯人だと思われる可能性があるからやっぱしばしにあたりかぶってもらえっちゅうなんか言ってるからさまあいいよっていうことで替え玉で出てきて地球さんの人が責任取らなきゃいけないんだよ。宇宙人に責任かけちゃいけないから。宇宙人憎しという次の世代でまた変なのが起きちゃいけないから R.A. ゴールはそんな直接介入はしてないんだこういうことでシバ神が渡してるんだということにしてほしいっていうご依頼があって替え玉で出てきてるんだからさ真犯人は別かもしれないけど一応は私がやってることにするからいろんな悪いことは田舎もね私がズール氏に命じて飛ばしてることにしてもいいよ。もうすぐ起きるけどでもただズバリこのなんていうかまっとうな信仰を集めてる神が起こしたと思うとちょっと心が重くなるから君たちはそういうふうに思わないで未知なるその戦闘の神というか破壊の神っていうか宇宙的なパワーとかなんかいろいろ働いたんだろうかなというあたりでボケてるとちょうどいいぐらいなんだよ。
Very interesting. So I love the way he said it in such a relaxed way. He's saying that, we've heard this stuff from various spiritual space people, R.A. Goal and Yai John and various others, talking about how they were going to create these problems. And he's saying, and his wife actually said to Master Okawa, but then the people are going to come to hate the space people. They'll blame the space people for all the stuff that's happening on Earth, and then people on Earth will come to have a bad feeling towards the space people. So God Shiva said, and that, and then also if people believe that the loving God, is creating destruction on people, people will maybe not like God so much either because of all the things that happen. So he says it's better for people to blame Shiva, God Shiva, the god of destruction. He says, I'm willing to take the responsibility for it. It's a really good way of thinking, right? So we don't blame the space people. We don't think the god of love is responsible, because how could he could do such a thing? But he has said a few times there, something is about to happen. Something is about to happen. So we can expect something about to happen. When Master says something's about to happen, something's about to happen. Okay, let's carry on.
させていただきます。本日は貴重なお話をお伺いしまして誠にありがとうございました。
ということで、前回のインド的な民族心とはだいぶ違った感じではあります。私も何かよくは分かりませんが、トランプさんの起源にどっかつながっているものがあるような感じはしましたね。そして、9次元の中にいろんな仕掛けをするようなこういう荒神的な部分をやっぱりやってる人はやっぱりいるんだろうなとは思うが、なかなかその特定はそう簡単にはされないようにはしているんではないかなというふうには思ってますね。言わないっていうのはそこまでしか明かせないということはしょうがないからそれでいいと思いますが、シバ神にしては幅広い教養に裏付けられた感じの存在を感じました。RA ゴールの身代わりとおっしゃってるから地球的にやったことをしなければいけないのでということあたりで本心を受け止めるしかないと思います。こんなんでいいのか、聞きたかった。もうちょっと何か具体的な名前引っ張り出したい？いいよね。
Okay. So yeah, that last part was pretty obvious. Was after he had said thank you, God Shiva, and God Shiva left, and this was Master back giving his final points. So that is the shortened version, down to about 40 minutes of the God Shiva lecture or spiritual message that was about an hour and 40 minutes long in total. But I fully recommend you at some stage watch the whole thing. It's quite incredible. Okay, so it's 1:30, but I've got a 10-minute meditation, so if anybody needs to leave, please feel free to leave. We also did say that we were planning to do a movie today from the Real Exorcist, so if anybody's planning to watch the movie, that'll be up on the second floor. But if you've got another 10 minutes, I've got this beautiful meditation. It's called the meditation on the cosmic love of Alcantari. And I think it's so relevant for today because in it he also talks about how there's beings throughout this universe. Because here we've been talking about space people and hearing about space people. And that in this universe created by Alcantari, love is the force. Love is the energy of this universe. And so it's a chance to connect with that. And there are some words that came from a lecture from Master Okawa. It was from, let me see what it was from, Love Surpasses Hatred. Gone too far. Love surpasses hatred, Q&A, and it was during his answer he gave that, but the words were so inspirational that they've taken some excerpts from those words and have placed it in here, so we have a chance to hear those words and then think about them and contemplate them while the music's playing. So there'll probably be about 3 different times when he speaks some words, and we listen to those words and think about what he's saying deeply, and then contemplate between that to think about the meaning of those words. So please get comfortable and straighten your back, close your eyes gently, and let's have a nice meditation. Last about 10 minutes.
The characteristic of the love of Alcantari is the cosmic one. It's a cosmic love, spanned by cosmic consciousness. As you know, we taught you the laws of universe. It means we have other humanoid or human-like beings in other space or in other stars. These people, the appearances are very different from human beings, but these space people also are taught by the origin of love, which comes from the spring of love. Its name is Alcantari. Alcantari is a tree of the universe. Alcantari is a tree of the universe of the life, and Alcantari is the heart, which was the birthplace of every human-like beings. Please think about the universe, and there are a lot of stars. Earth-like stars are countless. These countless stars, they are studying a lot of human-like beings. And they have principle. That principle comes from Alcantari. Alcantari told them, love is a beginning, and the love is the ending. Between the beginning and the ending, there occurred a lot of difficulties. But you can overcome a lot of adversities and you can get wisdom during that experiences. And finally, you will end in the name of love again. Love is the beginning, love is the ending. And between them, there are a lot of difficulties, and you can get wisdom through your experience. That is the main point of the Alcantari teachings.
That. So that's the end of our spiritual message. And I love that message in there at the end there when Master said that the main teaching of Alcantari is that love is the beginning and love is the ending. And but between the two, there is a lot of difficulties. But from those difficulties we get wisdom. It really exemplifies our lives. The heavenly world is a place we live in love, full of love. It's so full of love. And no separation, feeling the connectedness with God and others. And we leave that world and are born into this world to become individuals living in a body, feeling so separated, and into this so much difficulty, so many challenges and so much struggle. But then we go through this life and then we leave this life and we go back to the other world again and we're back into love again. And the whole purpose of that is like we're talking about at the beginning, through the experience we progress. Our soul gets to experience so many things, we come to understand so many things. So in the beginning is love and the end is love. And in the middle we go through the difficulties and the challenges that enable us to get wisdom. And that's, I think also, that's the picture of our reincarnation. But I think even in the big picture, where once upon a time, God was just everything is inside God, and then for God to create individuality, to put it out there, to create the separation, it's the same thing. Even the separate stars and the separate universes and the separate galaxies, everything separate like that, it's outside experiencing this creation. But ultimately, it can come back to the one again. So everything is going through this, even on the big picture scale, over hundreds of billions of years. I must have said about 100 billion years ago, primordial God started to picture in his mind the creation. And in the laws of the sun, you can see this, how in the beginning there was thus the eternal primordial God. And then around about, like 80 billion years ago, he started to, in his mind, create the universe. And then in that universe created the galaxies. And then in those galaxies created the stars. And then, so that was for a period of around about 60 billion years, creating that in the mind of God. And then about 40 billion years ago, at the time of the Big Bang, he created three-dimensional space. So in that time, three-dimensional space suddenly came into existence. And so before that, though, it had all just been in the mind of God. It was all in the mind of God as pictured it. And as Master said, that from thought, when God puts energy into thought, it becomes light. So now that thought has a spiritual form, a light form. And then through further energy and further will, that light can become matter. And this is how creation happened. So, but all of this is all part of this process of from the love, and everything begins with love and ends with love, and then in the middle, we're the beings in the middle of this. We're all part of God, experiencing God. And we are all children of God. And if we can see that in each other, that we are all children of God, and what we're going through is this experience with the goal to have wisdom on how to create an ideal world. We have to learn the mistakes, of course, of the earth, and we have to be strong enough not to get caught up in the negative feeling and, of course, the dark side. But this is part of our soul training. So let's be grateful for the soul training. Let's not get caught up in it. And let's be people who, if we see other people who are getting caught up in it, we wake them up to the truth. And the most important thing you can do for somebody is to remind them they're a spiritual being, and that this body's a temporary place, and this world's a temporary place, and you're here to develop yourself while help build a utopian world, an ideal world. That's the way to help people out of their suffering. Because people start to suffer when they live with the illusion that the body is everything and this world's everything. When they die and it's all over. And with what we're facing now, with the situation in the world, there's going to be a lot of people suffering because there's going to be a lot of people dying. So people are going to have to face death. And it's our responsibility to tell people death is not death. Death is the closing of one door and the opening of another. It's the door between this world and the next world. That's how the most thing we can do is to help people is build up our own faith in the truth and help other people understand the truth. Well, thank you everybody for coming today, and thank you God Shiva for such a wonderful spiritual message. Isn't it a big picture? It's the big picture, really big picture that God Shiva gives. So we can see the positive side of destruction. Thank you everybody.